Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a situation that is, well, it's surprisingly dramatic for something that happens every single day.
It really is.
We're going to analyze moral courage, the exhaustion of customer service, and, why a simple trip to the supermarket can suddenly become this huge moment of decision. We're diving deep into an account that one of you actually shared with us. It's a moment where a busy grocery run just completely escalates into a public fight over really basic human decency.
And our source material here lays out this social drama just perfectly.
Yeah.
The conflict, when you break it down, it was never really about the groceries.
Not at all.
No, the core tension we're looking at is this brutal collision of extreme consumer entitlement with, profound vulnerability. We have our observer, our OP, who's 35.
Right.
Then there's the aggressor, a woman in her mid-50s, and the target, a teenage cashier who was, by all accounts, just completely overwhelmed.
So our mission is clear. We're here to unpack what actually happened, analyze the behaviors that lead to these kinds of public meltdowns, and maybe most importantly, figure out the confusing social backlash our observer got. I mean, what is the real social cost of being the person who speaks up?
Okay, so to really get why this situation just exploded, we have to look at the environment you described. This wasn't some quiet, lazy morning.
No, context is everything here.
It was a busy afternoon at a local supermarket, and the checkout line was, quote, pretty long.
And that's the accelerant right there. You put people under that kind of low-grade environmental stress, everyone has somewhere else to be, the clock is ticking, nobody's moving, and patience just evaporates.
So people are already primed for a fight.
They're already operating the short fuse, absolutely. And who ends up bearing the brunt of all that collective impatience?
It's always the person in the service role.
Yeah.
Always the one who's seen as having the least authority.
Precisely. And the source notes that this cashier couldn't have been older than 17. She also seemed a bit flustered, probably new. Oh, almost certainly new.
And if you look at these entry-level jobs, especially for teenagers,
Yeah.
they don't have the experience to handle that volume and that pressure at the same time. They're learning new tech, dealing with demanding people, and they're exhausted from standing for hours.
Yeah.
So small errors they're inevitable. They are literally learning on the job while being judged by this captive audience.
She was new, she was trying her best, and that vulnerability is exactly what the aggressor locked onto.
And I think that's a key point. The sheer difficulty of these jobs is so often just overlooked. It's not just about scanning items. It's about maintaining a professional face while some customers treating you like you're an obstacle.
Right, like you're a faulty machine.
Exactly. And when you're 17, making a mistake with all those eyes on, you can feel just truly overwhelming.
And the trigger for this whole thing, this whole explosion, was so tiny. I mean, it was maybe a minute-long delay.
So minor.
The cashier accidentally scanned an item twice. She just needed to call a supervisor to avoid it.
Which is standard procedure.
It's just protocol. It's not some massive failure. But in that pressure cooker, it just became the flashpoint for everything that came next.
And this is where we really start to analyze the entitlement phase, which,
Right.
like you said, was brewing long before that little mistake even happened.
Yeah, she was already angry.
The source is very clear. The older customer was increasingly agitated. Even while the line was just moving slowly, she was muttering under her breath, rolling her eyes, tapping her foot.
Which tells us everything, right? The double scan wasn't the cause of her rage. It was just the excuse she was waiting for.
It was the permission slip.
Exactly. She was preloaded with this frustration and just looking for a target that couldn't really fight back.
It's that classic consumer power dynamic gone completely toxic. She felt her time was more valuable than the cashier's training, or frankly, her dignity. And as soon as that tiny technical hiccup happened, she lost it.
And the language she used is so important here because it shows the goal wasn't to solve the problem, it was to degrade. The lines she hurled at this teenager were just so cruel. How hard can it be to do this job? You can't even do basic tasks. You're wasting people's time.
It's a direct attack on her competence, on her worth. And that language, it really defines what we now, commonly call the Karen phenomenon.
Right.
And it's important to look at that sociologically, not just as a meme. It describes this very specific kind of entitlement where the person feels the money they're spending gives them absolute control over the entire environment.
And the right to just emotionally abuse minimum wage employees.
Exactly. It's like you said, it's treating a person like a faulty robot that you need to kick to get it working.
Yeah.
And the result was immediate and Just heartbreaking. The source confirms the poor girl was tearing up.
Yeah.
So the customer's actions went way beyond just demanding efficiency. This was emotional bullying, plain and simple, aimed at a vulnerable kid who was visibly trying her best.
And when you see that, the tears, it just clarifies moral stakes instantly, doesn't it? It's not about groceries anymore. It's about basic human dignity. And that dehumanizing thinking brings us right to the pivotal moment. Our observer, the OP, she has to make a choice.
Right. To step in or not.
And she describes standing there for a second, hoping the lady would cool down, but she didn't. That detail is so important.
Why do you think so?
Because it shows her intervention wasn't impulsive. It wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It was a deliberate moral choice she made after realizing the abuse was just going to continue.
That calculated pause is critical. It shows she was initially trying to stick to that powerful social rule of silence.
Don't get involved.
Don't get involved, it's not your business. But when the aggressor violated that higher moral rule, don't make a child cry, she knew she had to break the silence.
And her defense was so direct and powerful. She immediately set a boundary. She said, you don't have the right to treat someone like that. She's doing her best, and it's just a mistake.
She framed the issue correctly right out of the gate. She didn't get into a debate about scanners or waiting times.
Yeah.
She focused purely on the ethics of the treatment. That's taking the high ground.
But the next line is the one. It's the one that really hits home for anyone who's ever felt that frustration. It's the phrase that felt so effective. She said, if you're so unhappy, maybe you should try working like her for a day and see how easy it is.
Oh, that phrase is just rhetorical genius in that context. It's perfect because it momentarily flips the entire power dynamic.
How so?
It forces the aggressor to acknowledge the reality of the labor she's so easily dismissing. It punctures that entitlement by introducing empathy and effort into what she sees as just a simple transaction.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Doesn't a retort like that, as satisfying as it is, risk just escalating everything? I mean, she's basically challenging her. Did that line actually help the cashier, or did it just give the OP a moment of, cathartic victory?
That's a fair question. And look, in a purely clinical sense, yeah, escalation is always a risk. However, in this case, the aggression was already at its peak. The cashier was already crying.
The damage was done.
The damage was done. The OP's intervention, especially that line, it wasn't aimed at mediation. It was aimed at a shutdown. By issuing that work ethic challenge, she shifted the argument away from the cashier's mistake and onto the customer's character flaw.
And the customer was not prepared to defend that.
Not at all. It stunned her. And when she predictably shot back with, mind your own business, our OP had the perfect final word.
Yes, the ultimate justification. It is my business when you're making a kid cry over something as stupid as groceries.
And that is the complete and total rejection of that social norm of not intervening. It's perfect moral statement.
And the source confirms it worked. The aggressor was stunned, and she stormed off, still muttering, after the supervisor finally showed up. The abuse was over because she stepped in.
Okay, so now we get to the part that is, for me, the most confusing, the most sociologically fascinating part of this whole story. The OP intervenes successfully. She defends the teenager. The cashier thanks her with teary eyes. A win, right? But she still ends up second-guessing herself. Why? Because other people in line gave me looks like I was the one who had done something wrong.
This is the critical piece of data right here. We've moved from analyzing aggression to analyzing passive compliance. We're staring right at the chilling effect of, the bystander effect.
So why those looks? I mean, what were they judging? Were they judging the fact that she dared to break the fragile public peace?
I think it's mostly that. They were judging the disruption. You see, the bystander effect isn't just about people freezing up. It's about the subconscious cost-benefit analysis everyone does in public.
Intervening carries a social risk. You risk getting into a fight, you risk confrontation, and crucially, you risk making everyone else around you uncomfortable.
So in that moment, everyone else standing silently in line was basically doing the same unspoken math.
Exactly. The math is, if I step in, I have to participate in this ugly scene, and I ruin the quiet flow of my own afternoon. They value preserving that superficial public order more than they value defending that teenager.
So when the OP intervened, she forced them all to acknowledge not just the ugly reality of the situation, but maybe more painfully, their own choice to do nothing.
Yes. And the easiest way for them to process that discomfort, maybe that guilt about not speaking up, is to just transfer the blame onto the person who did act.
So they're essentially saying the peace was broken by your voice, not by the bullying that came before it.
That is the insidious nature of social shaming in these spaces. The bystanders didn't want a scene. The OP created a scene. Therefore, the OP is responsible for their negative feelings, even if she was 100% morally correct.
That is a powerful and, frankly, pretty depressing realization. It means taking the moral high ground often comes with an immediate social penalty.
It often does. The OP got the gratitude from the person who mattered, the cashier, but she had to endure the silent disapproval of everyone else.
And that disapproval is designed, subconsciously or not, to discourage it from happening again. That feeling of being judged is what makes people hesitate the next time they see something like this.
That's the social cost of courage. It highlights this prevailing etiquette in public spaces, an etiquette that encourages looking away.
And that etiquette, that silence, it only empowers the aggressors. If the consensus is to look away, the bullies know they have free rein.
So, to synthesize this whole deep dive, the source is just. They confirm the fundamental necessity of the OP's action. The entitlement shown by that customer was completely disproportionate, it was abusive, and the need to protect that cashier, it outweighed the discomfort of breaking that social silence.
The lesson here, for you listening, seems pretty clear. The choice between the awkward silence and necessary action is always going to be difficult. But our sources show us that defending vulnerability in that moment, it outweighs your own personal comfort. It definitely outweighs the passive judgment of people who refuse to act themselves.
And the ability of one person to use their words to reframe a moment from a simple customer service error into a moral violation, well, that is the power of intervention. It forces the whole system to recognize the human cost.
And here is a final provocative thought to leave you with, and it builds directly on that discomfort the OP faced. We established that the judgment from the bystanders, it acts as a social penalty, right? It's designed to discourage future interventions. So if stepping in to stop verbal abuse against a service worker results in the intervener being judged more harshly than the actual aggressor, what does that chilling effect ultimately cost us as a society? If we continually choose our own comfort over courage, who is it that ultimately pays the price for our collective silence?
Something to mull over the next time you hear someone muttering under their breath in line.
We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.